Hello, parents, educators, and nerdy D&D fans. You have found our new home for Area of Effect, a talk show where we discuss how tabletop role-playing games benefit the whole family. We're currently in process of shifting all our old but golden episodes over to this new channel by posting a new episode every weekday until we catch back up to our new episodes. We would love your help getting this new channel up and running with a follow, share, or review. And thanks for joining us on our quest to bring more adventurers to the table.
When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
So it's so interesting just thinking and looking back at Chloe, the 6-year-old, and me introducing this idea that we're going to play this game with Ryan and Beckett and some other friends. I remember Chloe looked so small, like, her feet don't touch the ground, and she was not sure how to roll dice. And every time she would review that spell sheet of what can I do? And, all the whispering that would happen. And so then fast forward how many episodes later, and just even rewatching the reels to see her little sassiness come out and her confidence in choosing a spell and casting it. It was amazing to see the transformation and the confidence she just built. And so I'm so excited to just see what the future holds and what kind of player Chloe's going to be now. It's given me an opportunity to, as a parent, to be proud of her in so many ways. Hi, I'm Raenelle.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Allison. And welcome to Area of Effect, a podcast by the Kids Table, where we discuss how tabletop RPGs benefit kids and answer your questions about playing TTRPGs with the kids at your own table.
I am really excited for this episode because today we get to welcome to Area of Effect one of our dear friends, Raenelle. Hi, Raenelle.
Hello.
Raenelle,
I'm so glad to be here.
I'm so glad you're here too. Raenelle is the third adult on the kids table. She plays Sophia, who is Serena's mom in the season, and she is also Chloe's real life mom. Raenelle is also an educator with 20 years of experience working with kids and adults, and she and I had a conversation last week as we're recording this right now. The second to last episode of season 1 of the Kids Table is about to drop. Go check it out on YouTube. And we're gearing up to start recording season 2 sometime in the next couple of months. And Ray and I were talking about that, and we had this fascinating conversation about the ways that our kids have changed in the last couple of years, because some people may not know this, but we actually recorded the first season of the Kids Table back in the spring of 2022. It was part of a whole different project that we did for a different group, and then we took that footage and we did something new with it, and that's what is the Kids Table today. Chloe and Beckett were both 6 years old back then. I can't believe that right now.
They were so little.
They were so little.
And adorable.
And as we gear up for season 2, they've both now turned 9. So what do you think about that, Ray? Sunrise, sunset, time passes. So hard.
The circle of life. No, I think it's amazing, actually. I was reflecting as we were talking about this last week. I've had more time to think about it. Chloe, then I think people were starting to notice Chloe was getting a little more sassy. Chloe was getting a little more confident. But now as a 9-year-old, and Ryan, maybe you're experiencing this too, but they're really starting to come into their own. All these things that she has started to gain as a young person that now I'm so excited about what Chloe is going to bring to a game now. Us getting together playing D&D. Like I'll have to like cherish those memories of little Chloe. But I have to be ready, I think, to create space for who Chloe is now, where she is at developmentally. I think that's one of the beautiful things about D&D. We come knowing that it was completely appropriate the way we played it then for our children. And now it's going to be a little bit different, right? And we're going to have to approach it different. I'm going to have to be just like Chloe's growing now, and I have to adjust who I am as a mom. I'm gonna need to adjust who I am as a mom, even in the game.
Well, so that's a good question to start out with. When we first recorded the kids table back in 2022, Chloe and Beck were 6. You and I and Allison are all adults. We were at the table, and we also had Alice, who at that point was 17.
17.
17. Well, I was already DMing for different ages. So why is it going to be different having Beck and Chloe older now?
I think you're gonna have more freedom to challenge a little bit, right? The stakes might be a little higher, right? You talk about, as educators, we talk about beneficial risk, right? So the risks that
Talk about more of that. What is beneficial risk?
I mean, from my limited understanding, right? Like you want, like when a kid is a baby, you're not going to tell them, "Hey, try jumping off that log," right? Like as a child gets older, I want them to jump off the log so that they know, like, oh, I was able to do that. That wasn't too high. I can do things like that. And so I think as the adults who are encouraging or walking alongside children, we have to be preparing spaces where they are testing out and exploring who they are, who they can be. And so I think that gives you as a DM a little bit of like, this scenario might feel tricky to them, right? It pushes the upper limit of where they feel comfortable. The answers might not be so easy. Whereas when they were younger, we were just trying to build confidence in them even making any kind of choice. Now, I think at 9, I think they're much more comfortable with making basic choices, right? But as we think of them getting older, and so yeah, so I think they're ready. You can introduce things more that challenge them to think deeper about, like, well, what would I do? How will we get through that? So the conflict, I think, can be just a hair more difficult.
Every time I think about recording the next season of the Kids Table, one of the things that I love about what we do is the multiple ages that we have around the table, right? We've got kids, we've got teenagers, we've got adults. And it's an interesting thing to think through, because when we were originally, casting the vision for the Kids Table, we were looking at the live play landscape back in 2022, and there just was very little kid representation out there. And kids learn best when they see people who are like them, which is why diversity and equity and inclusion is incredibly important, so that all types of kids can see all types of people who are like them. But specifically, kids teaching kids is a huge thing in educational theory. And so just getting kid representation up there was a big deal. Now that our kids are older, the things that they've been showing in season 1 as 6-year-olds are going to be different. Do you think that there's going to come to be a point where we're going to need to recruit younger children again? And what will that do for Beckett and Chloe?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some things that cross all ages pretty naturally, like humor. I think there's something about emphasizing that within curiosity, that also means the ability to be able to laugh at ourselves or to laugh with others. And so there's something about that I feel like whatever ages we include, that if we continue to hold that as a value, that this, the rules that you set out in the very beginning of how we play with each other, I feel like those are universal. So I'm hoping that even as they're 9-year-olds, that we would some of those core values would still come through and like So it's interesting because right where they are now, I don't know if I would feel ready to like introduce something like so both Beckett and Chloe have a younger sibling that
Mm-hmm.
is a tenuous. I'll speak for Chloe and Camden. Camden adores Chloe.
Yep.
Chloe may not always adore Camden as much as he adores her.
Same with Beckett and Oren.
Right. And so right now I'm I don't want to underestimate Chloe, but I'm just saying what they're navigating right now as the reality is they are getting closer to that tween. It feels like 9 is a hard age.
Mm,
There is something to be said though. I just like at schools where they have a fifth grader kinder buddy
right.
system. There's something to be said about addition of this where they are more in a buddy age that I would be ready to introduce and prep them in a way that feels like you're not exactly a mentor, but you are the you isn't it a joy to introduce this to other kids who
Right.
are younger than you, right? Not
Right.
to create this like weird power dynamic already and then have like
Right.
little adults being like, no, this is how you play, but like, hey, this is a joy, we're all gonna have you know a great time together and start introducing some of those aspects. So that makes me think a lot
Well,
like
fourth grade is a hard age, right? Because you're right on the cusp of, if you go into educational theory, you're right on the cusp of abstract thinking, falling completely into abstract thinking, right? You're in concrete operations for most of elementary school, but it's right at fifth grade, at that age 10 level, where you start to tip into the abstract thinking that characterizes teenagers and adults. And that's one of the things that I love about D&D specifically, but TTRPGs in general, is the way that the systems can morph for the different ages, right? We've seen it already with season 1 of the Kids Table. You can use this system to play with multiple ages at the same table. Everybody gets something out of it. You can focus it slightly younger, but even the teenagers and the adults are having a good time and are deriving meaning from the experience. And so one of the things that I'm excited, both as a DM and as a parent, as our kids get older, is the way that the game will continue to morph around them, but that the way that the game can also help morph them, right? I feel like we will have failed if the kids table, you know, our grand plan for the kids table for the next 10 years is that it continues and we have multiple groups and we're doing such amazing things. But, regardless of what actually happens for the company, I will feel bad if Chloe and Beckett's experience ends with them only ever as the youngest kids at the table. I feel like they will have been robbed of something really important if they aren't able to become those mentors for a younger group of kids. And maybe that'll be Camden and Oren. I mean, a year from now, Camden and Oren will be the same age that Beckett and Chloe were when we recorded season 1. Yeah, I know. I try not to think about that too.
terrible.
I know, right? But like, you know, I don't know if the sibling dynamics will necessarily let us do that. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But there's something I think important and valuable about trying to cast this as a way of the kids continuing to grow through the stages in D&D.
One thing I noticed as a player at the table was that I played a lot differently than I do when I played just with adults.
Yeah, for sure.
Because really, even though we had, 2 adults and a teenager and 2 children at the table, it was kid focused. And even Alice, as a teenager, understood that, right? Like, I know for a fact she didn't play the same as she did when we played just with teenagers and Alice was at the table. Because we were all trying to make it a good experience for the kids. We were all trying to support them and help them grow in their gameplay and their skills, and that was our focus more than me just playing how I want to play. I've noticed taking a back role, trying to support their decisions, even giving them more time and space to make their decisions and understand the choice they were making.
I wonder if a structure like the kids table or, a D&D home game can give teenagers as they grow an outlet for that, where they're still, supporting younger kids and being supported by adults above them, but where they don't feel like they have to cocoon so hard, where that task of identity manipulation and exploration and risk taking and all of that can happen around the table in a way that isn't so lonely, right? So much of teenagerhood is marked by loneliness, even for the extrovert kids, because you feel like you're the only one in the world who's ever had these feelings and has ever gone through these changes and has ever had to construct an identity with your bare hands. And I wonder if being at a table like this softens that process a little bit, especially Ray, going to what you've talked about with creativity and wonder and, that experience that it's okay to still, feel these things. I wonder if mentoring in that way around the table makes that process easier.
I mean, I think it does. And especially when you talk about loneliness, I think that loneliness also comes from feeling like you have to bear it alone.
Yeah.
Like it's all on your personal shoulders. There's something about being a teen and that isolation that you talked about and the continued awkwardness of like trying to figure out who you are, what your multiple identities are, that whether you're 9 or you're about to be 18, that's still a constant where you're like asking yourself, what is it that brings me joy? Why do I feel this way? And I think when you're trying to figure all those things out, but also, we're talking about having the confidence to mentor, the confidence to shine your light to someone else, if you're not comfortable yourself, it's really hard to do that for someone else authentically. And so I think for teens, the ability to do so many things, to mentor, to start figuring out who you are, to feel supported, like the table is a great place to do that. And I feel like there's a part on us to be open that if someone doesn't necessarily show that naturally, that there are ways that we walk alongside a young person to model it. Because I don't know if, I mean, some people it would be very natural. Like Alice, she was just ready to do that. And others, I'm like, wouldn't that be a gift to see someone who showed maybe potential for that and then really exercised it once like we got the game going.
Had that opportunity.
I mean, the opportunity to, like, I'm curious about what assumptions we're going to have to walk away from to make space for other teens that are not Alice at the table.
Yeah, that's a really good point too, because one of the things that I loved about season 1 was the modeling that Alice did for Beckett and Chloe, especially when Allison had to step away for those few weeks. And so it was just Alice on the one side of the table and you, Raenelle, on the other side of the table. And so Alice took more of a leading role, like with the puzzles, helping them to focus on the puzzles, with asking the NPCs questions to show the kids like how to do that. And so, as Beckett and Chloe age into this stage where they're going to become mentors, hopefully, they already have a good example of that. Like, it's hard for us to be that example, you and I right now, because we're the parents. And so we fulfill a different role, but Alice could fill that mentoring role for them and give them an example of a good mentor that they could then grow into. And also, I agree that there is also space at the table for those kids, those teenagers who are figuring that role out too. And that's one of those ways that young kids can also lead up, right? There's always this hierarchy in every organization that's top down, that the older people mentor younger still, mentor younger still. It's like the Robin Williams hook theory of mentorship. And I feel like there's space for younger kids to lead up to and to change the way that teenagers and to change the way that adults live into the table too.
The reason this works at all different ages is when you're thinking about things like curiosity, things that we want to instill, empathy, all those things of role playing, right? They're able to do that this whole way through as a 6-year-old and as a 9-year-old.
Yeah, and not only is it a significant opportunity for kids to play with both older and younger kid players, but kids playing with their grown-ups is also so important. To be able to play together is to switch into this different mode where you can kind of leave that tension kind of behind. And I think that, like, as parents, both of you guys, I just want to affirm you that, like, playing together is building this, like, level of trust that when they do get into those times as a teenager where there's something like really heavy on their hearts, that then they feel more comfortable coming to you with it. And I think it's so important for you guys to keep playing together. And I love that you're doing it.
I think every person with a kid our age is terrified of what's to come.
Yeah.
So what
Should
you
be.
just what you just said there, I think is the bridge, right?
Okay.
No, it's the bridge of why we did what we did when they were 6. So what Mariana and I like to say, my good friend, we're investing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're banking moments now, hoping that it will pay off in this other way. And that's exactly what like just what you said now of the kind of relationship we're building now, what that will mean for later. I think there's so much unknown and scariness, but that understanding that the play will create these unknown effects in the way that your child sees you. That's so important. I don't think that means we're talking about teens. I think you're just encapsulating why play is important at all ages. I was thinking again about the importance of humor. And Allison, I was actually thinking of you because just in watching some clips the other day, I was thinking we have so many moments where we want to just tell or be really serious and say, this is how you do it, and go with it. And that doesn't actually break the barrier of getting through to someone. But I feel like the reason that I saw Chloe grow so much were the moments that we laughed together as a group, right? There were so many, those reels is really to me a testament of like when we can be vulnerable enough to enter a situation and then just to that moment where we would all burst into laughter. And I feel like Allison, there were so many times if you rewatch that you went there, and I feel that you were willing to go there and just be funny. There's something about that I just almost feel like if we continue that ethos, that whether it's a teen or a small kid, because that laughter felt like love and joy all wrapped in one. There is healing in laughter and an extension of how, like myself and the kids, I think everyone felt loved at that table. And then we did it together. Right? Like there was something so powerful about being at that table. And so I think the opportunity to invite more ages and to work through conflict, but to demonstrate how conflict can be done in a loving way. What a gift that we have as parents to learn some of those things through this medium where we're experiencing the full range of emotion in one place with others that we trust and love. There's nothing that can replace that. And so it's really a privilege to be at the table with everyone.
Thanks for listening to Area of Effect. Be a part of the ongoing conversation. Follow us on Instagram at the Kids Table D&D, where you can DM us questions that might appear on a future show. And check out the Kids Table D&D on YouTube to see how we include kids and teens at the table. Brought to you by the Kids Table, because when kids are at the table, everyone wins.